Welcome to the Pheasantasiam. In this video I'm going to give you a rundown on some of the things you should look out for, think about and implement while building a outdoor aviary. So this is my large outdoor aviary, the Pheasantasiam, and we'll start with the door. So a double door is super important in my opinion on an outdoor aviary. To not have a double door is crazy. It's very simple for a bird to get out the door when you open the door, especially if your birds are as friendly as mine and like to sit on your shoulder and try and fly at you as you're going out the door and that sort of thing. So on the outside of my door here I just have a standard slide bolt. You open that door and it's hinged, it's got a spring on it so it will shut by itself. Bang. That way if you walk in and you forget to pull it behind you, it always closes. I think that's a very important feature. And when you come inside, you've got an area here where birds can get into if they have to and can't get out. So if I open the next door and a bird flies in, they at least can't get past the original opening door. Sorry, it's a bit hard to film in such a confined space. Now I leave all the weeds and things growing in here on this section because when I open this door, the quail like to come out and nibble on the grass. So the internal doors, that sliding door there and this door here, are not hinged. That way I can prop them open if I'm needing to get things in and out of the doorway area. The doorway area is very handy for storing things. It's not, don't think of it as a wasted space. You can use it for storing cleaning products, food bins, that sort of thing. Got a bit of wood there that I use to block off the doorway there when I've got baby quail. And yeah, I leave these weeds for the quail which don't seem to want to come out. Sitting over there in the corner. So that's my first tip, the door. Make sure your door is double. Very, very, very important in my opinion. So this door, like I say, not hinged, not sprung. So I can then just leave that open, carry things in and out into that area there. Branches, whatever I might have to get in and out of here. You need to get something like a seat like this in and out. If you haven't got a double door, you've got to leave the door wide open like this for a minute or two while you get the chair out and hope that nothing flies out. So gotta have a double door. And this double door of course means accesses two different aviaries. So my main aviary there, the Pheasantasiam, and then this one here. So that's quite handy as well. One double door, two aviaries. I have a third aviary there with another door which goes into this aviary, so if anything gets out of there they can only get into there. And this door just has a magnet catch on it. I have got a cheap wire hook here on the other side because just in case. So that's my first tip, double door. Second, space. Make your aviary as large as you possibly can. It's much better that way for you, for the birds, for cleaning, for getting things in and out, for putting plants in, and it isn't that much dearer, surprisingly. Once you've got your basic construction, if you're going to build a square aviary for instance, you've got all the corners, you've got the roof, adding another like a metre in length usually doesn't add that much cost because you've still got the corners and the ends. You're not adding more material to the ends, you're just adding a strip in the middle sort of thing. So when you're adding a strip in the middle, it's not all that much more expensive. Plus work to the size of your materials. If you've got 6 metre long lengths of timber, then you could cut them into 3 2-metre lengths, 2 4-metre lengths, 2 3-metre lengths, a 4 and a 2, Just work it out so that you can get the most out of your material and get the biggest size aviary you possibly can. It will make life so much better. And the bigger you've got it, the more birds you can put in, and the more chance you've got of plants and greenery on the ground and stuff surviving the birds you've got in there. On the size of space, don't overfill your aviary. Don't put too many birds in there. This aviary is around 360 square feet, just this side, not including those two. And if you do calculators on the internet that, for how many birds you can fit in your aviary, I did one once and it said I could fit something like 270 finches in here, which would just be absolutely crazy in my opinion. Apart from the fact that it'd be like walking into a swarm of locusts, it's just too many. So I've got 5 cockatiels in here, 5 Java sparrows. I'm not sure how many turquoisines at the moment, about half a dozen. A couple of doves, swinny, a pheasant. Is that it? I think that's all that's on this side at the moment. And you can have all these different birds together because of the space. More space you have, the more different birds you can have together, because they can just keep to themselves, keep out of each other's way, not fight, that sort of thing, because they don't come in contact with each other too much, or they don't have to. If you've got all these same birds in a confined space, you're going to get trouble, because they're all going to be competing to sit on the same perches and be in the same places, whereas in here there's plenty of room for them all. Now, the construction of the aviary, you can use different materials, obviously. So the materials, basically you can make it out of timber or you can make it out of metal. Those are your two obvious choices. So timber is usually cheaper and easier for people at home to do, because it doesn't require any welding or anything like that, or special cutting equipment or anything. So I built this one out of timber because it was a lot cheaper to do it that way. I do have another aviary over there which is built out of stainless steel. It's polished stainless steel. It's for a galah. Didn't build that one out of timber because, being a galah, he will chew on it a lot more than the guys in here. So that's what you need to take into consideration when building your aviary. Material based on what bird you're putting in there. If you've got a macaw or a cockatoo or something like that, a big parrot. Hello, Charlie. If you've got a big parrot, come on. No. You want to scratch down. You want to scratch. If you've got a large parrot like a macaw, not a little cockatiel like Joester there, you will need a steel construction. Do not use timber. It'll be destroyed in no time and your birds will be getting out and it'll cost you a fortune and blah blah blah. So you need steel. But when you've only got little guys like this, and say red rumps and parrots, about that sort of size, you can get away with timber, no problem. So if you're using timber, it will need to be treated to survive outdoors in the elements, so it doesn't rot. Hey, sit down, guys. So this aviary is constructed of treated timber, treated pine, and then I have a 19mm mesh. Now you can go smaller than that, of course. You get down to like the 13 or below, then you'll make it mouse proof. This one is not mouse proof. A mouse could get through there no problem. But not too many do, and even if they do, Swinny, she will get them if they get in here. So the mesh, make sure you find out what size mesh is available in your area, or hardware cloth, depending on where you live. Make sure you find out the width of that before you start building your aviary, because that determines what timber you buy and how big you can make your aviary. It all needs to be multiples of the width of your mesh to save the most money, make the most use of your materials. So, like I say, I've got tantalized treated timber, which has been painted. The birds don't really chew on it. There's a few little places where it's been nibbled by the cockatiels. A little bit there, but not much considering they've been in here quite a number of years now. So the mesh here is galvanized, which I know some people are against because of poisoning to the birds. Once again, if you've got a large aviary, the birds don't need to hang around on the mesh and chew on the mesh, because they've got so many other things to do in here and so many other things to play with and destroy and what have you. So they're not hanging around chewing on the mesh. So I haven't had any problems related to that in this aviary. And after a few months being out exposed to the elements of the rain and everything, it oxidizes and washes off. What I suggest you do is build your aviary and let it weather for a couple of months before you put birds in, ideally. I know that's hard. Now on the roof, I have some shade cloth. Now, I put shade cloth on the roof. Originally I only had shade cloth on the roof. I didn't have any mesh above it. And I had shade cloth on the roof so that pheasants, when they get startled and they fly straight up, they would be a bit springy and not break their necks. That's the theory behind the shade cloth. Plus it also provides a bit of shade. Sorry, there's a truck going past. Provides a bit of shade. This is 50% shade cloth, so it blocks out 50% of the sun. But I ended up having to put mesh on it because the local cats are walking on it and trying to get to the birds, and I didn't want them tearing a hole through it or damaging the shade cloth. Sorry, that's my phone. So I put some mesh over the top on that section. This area down here has a plastic roofing over the top of it as well. What's up, guys? So it's got the shade cloth. I put shade cloth over the whole thing first, and then I put plastic roofing over this area, and it's open to the elements with the mesh at the other end. So this area stays relatively dry, unless it's really, really miserable weather. I left an open patch up here so that the wind could blow through the aviary from the west. This is where the wind comes from, just to keep airflow going through nicely and let a bit of sun in the evening. Hey Joestar, who's that? And this area at the end here is a covered area, so they could get out of the elements. There's a bit of a... Can you just step up there, Joestar? No, you want to be in shot. So there's a covered area to keep the birds out of the wind and the rain and what have you, if they so desired. You showing off? They don't really use it all that much, to be honest. Sometimes they sit under there, but most of the birds, if not all the birds, sleep out in the open, often in the exposed weather. So don't go to too much effort building covered areas for birds. I've built lots of covered areas and little houses and things for the birds, and they tend not to use them. They'd rather just sleep on a natural branch or perch. Good boy. Now the floor of the aviary. The floor of this aviary, as you can no doubt see, is natural. I have covered about 1/3 down this side. The entrance side is covered with a AstroTurf. It's a commercial grade AstroTurf that they use on hockey courts. So I put that down the side just so that it wouldn't get muddy for us walking in and out and that sort of thing in winter. And the rest of the aviary is just natural earth. This way I can have plants palms, lots of palms grown in here. Bismarckian nobilis there, Caryota that I need to cut down, other palms, and greenery growing on the ground. These I have deliberately planted. They're patches of seed that I've let grow, and the grasses and things, the birds just love foraging around and eating grass. It's what they naturally would be doing. I think a much healthier, more natural, makes the birds happier, and I personally think is easier to look after than concrete floors, and much better looking. It's much nicer to have a bit of greenery and things on the ground and look natural than to have a slab of concrete that you hose down every now and again. With this, the seeds go on the ground. The ones that get dropped don't get wasted, they sprout, and then the birds go down and eat the sprouted plants. So it's sort of win-win. With the natural floor though, you have to be aware of predators. Thankfully, I live in New Zealand, and so we don't have a lot of burrowing predators. We don't have snakes, we don't have foxes. I live in a city. There's not a big rat problem or anything like that. But if you have those sort of issues, you may need to put mesh down underneath the soil. And this aviary here, which was home to some special birds, I put down, because it was only a small aviary and it was a lot easier to do, I put mesh underneath the ground. I do have a video of me doing that. I might put a link to that at the end. So if you live somewhere that has a lot of burrowing predators, foxes and things, you can, when I built this aviary, I took that into account a little bit, and I extended the walls down. At the bottom of the walls here, you could extend the mesh down, or I put roofing iron down below the ground a couple of feet so that any rats that were close to the surface digging along would hit that and hopefully turn around and bugger off. So you can put down barriers like that. You can put down brick barriers, concrete block barriers, metal barriers, mesh barriers, anything as deep as you can to stop things from burrowing through. Or, like I say, dig the whole aviary out, put a layer of mesh on the ground, put the dirt back on top, just to stop things from being able to get in. Next up, plantings. Now you can plant lots of different things in an aviary. Just make sure that it's not poisonous to birds. There's a lot of lists on the internet, check them out, of plants that are and are not safe for parrots to chew on, that sort of thing. If you haven't got parrots, if you've just got finches, pheasants, or something that's not going to eat the trees, then not quite as important. But with parrots, with little cockatiels and things that chew on, especially the bigger parrots, you need to make sure that the plants are not poisonous. I've got a lot of palms in here because I like palms, and the birds seem to like palms too. They love chewing on everything. So yeah, mostly palms in here. Cordyline australis, New Zealand cabbage tree there. This was a macadamia nut tree, which was actually planted here before I built the aviary, and I just sort of trimmed it up so the birds could fly through. This palm was also planted here before I built the aviary, as was the Bismarckia over there. I've had lots of other plants in here over the years, which some have been completely massacred by little teals and pheasants. The plants are too small when they go in, they don't stand much chance. So if you can get a tree that's already got a bit of height to it, then you're doing a lot better. It'll have a lot more chance. But of course it all depends on what sort of birds you have. If you've got quail running around, then unlikely to destroy plants like cockatiels, for instance. So I like to have as much greenery as possible, things that are natural for the birds to land on and stuff. This one's nice and tough, so they don't attack this one and they can't really sit on it. It's just for looks, but it is going to be a problem when it gets a little bit bigger. This one here has gotten too tall now and is starting to bend, trying to get to the light and pushing against the roof. So I will be taking it out shortly. But you don't have to plant things directly in the ground. You can have a selection of plants in pots and just rotate them on a regular basis. Just bring them in and out as they start getting chewed too much. Take them out, bring in a fresh one. I do that as well. Haven't got any in here at the moment, but I do have a lot of plants in pots that are recovering in the garden. Perches. Make sure you've got lots of different perches, lots of different thicknesses, lots of different sort of shapes and stuff. Plain bits of dowel like that are okay, but prefer natural sticks and things. I mean, the birds love to just perch on the ends of broken branches and things like that. So try and put as many branches in as possible. Different environments for the birds to... Different birds, they find their favourite sort of perches and places to sit. See over the back here, cockatiels don't use this perch area much, but the Java sparrows and turquoisines love it. They also love using the niqau. See, with the palms like this, it's a bit delicate for the bigger birds to sit in, so it gives the little birds peace because they can go and sit in there and they know that the cockatiels can't come and harass them or anything. Not that my lovely cockatiels would, but the cockatiels can't land on the leaflets because they bend too much, they're too heavy, so other birds can get away, so just take that into account. When you start getting birds, don't get too many at once either. Just try a couple, get them used to the place, add another couple, and just be aware of the sort of birds you're putting in. I personally wouldn't put anything larger than a red rump cockatiel sized bird. I would maybe stretch to a rosella, maybe, but it would have to be a very nice one. Just because of the size of their beaks. See, I wouldn't put my galah in here because he's just too dangerous towards the other birds. Even if he, just a playful nip with his beak could take a leg off one of these poor little guys. So just remember that when selecting your bird species. Now, to me, a seat in an aviary is extremely important. I built this one a few years ago for my wife, and we love sitting out here with the birds. Not that I've done it for a long time, but in summer it's lovely to sit out here and talk to the birds on the weekend. They do tend to poo on it, as is their wont, but in these containers here we have cushions and covering for the chair, so that we put a cover over the whole chair and then we can sit on the cushions. It's nice and comfortable. So I keep food in one of these as well, so all their seed, their aviary mix is kept. Quail are having a little squawk. So the seeds kept in here, the cushions and things are kept in here, and I let them feed on the ground out of this. Every now and again I take it away and I let them clean up all the seed they've dropped everywhere, so it doesn't cost me too many millions of dollars. All the water I give the birds is rainwater collected in this barrel here, and that's hooked up to this hose. It's just gravity fed. Simple as that. As I lift this up, it stops because it's now above the height of the barrel. Simple. So as well as having that water bowl, I also let the hose drip constantly into that dish over there, and I have a couple of dishes here that the cockatiels and the sparrows and the turquoisines use, and the pheasants and the doves and anyone who wants a bath uses that one. Hey. When you plant things in the aviary, you might have trouble getting them started because the birds keep eating them. If I want to plant seed directly on the ground, as I have with these patches here, I use a thing like this, just a piece of mesh, timber sides, just keeps the birds off, gives the grasses and things a few inches to grow. And you can leave them on there and they all pop through the top and the birds just come along and trim them off. Or what I do is once it gets to a decent size, I take that away and then I let them rummage around in the grass or whatever plants you've gotten growing with the seed. Also remember when building your aviary to take into account where the sun goes throughout the day and the prevailing winds in your area. You want to make sure the birds get plenty of sunshine, but that they don't get too hot. Just above this turquoisine's head here, you'll see a little sprinkler head. So I've got some irrigation pipe running across the top with some misting sprinkler heads. And in summer, if it gets too hot, I can just turn that on. It puts a fine mist over this area here, and the birds will come and they'll have a little shower there. So that's something you need to consider if you live in a very hot area. If you live in a cold area, you've got other problems to deal with, obviously. So if you live in a really cold area, you might have to put heating in the aviary, bring your birds into a different cage perhaps over winter, or you can put screens down over the mesh, be they fabric, canvas, something like that, just so that it holds the heat in. I don't have that issue. We don't get any snow or really cold weather. We get the odd frost, but that's about it. And if you've got ground birds like these little quail here, make sure that they can get up on something high if there's a lot of rain. Keep their feet dry. Put in some rocks and things like this. Anything that they will be able to climb up on to get out if there's a lot of water running through their aviary, particularly if you live in a flood prone area. Make sure the birds can get up onto something high, or put in good drainage around the outside of your aviary to make sure the water doesn't get in the first place. So I think that's about enough for now. I'll probably do another Aviary 101 part 2 sometime in the future. But for now, thanks for watching. I've got lots of other aviary videos if you're interested, some of which will be on the screen at the end of this video. Here and here and here and here. So take a look at those. I've got a lot of cockatiel companion videos. If you've got cockatiels and you need something for them to listen to when you're not around, then they're great for that. Or a lot of people just like listening to them in the background themselves. So thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.